Welcome back to MassQ's Get a Q podcast. My name is Brandon Hall. I'm pleased to be joined today by MassQ President Rayna Friedman and board member Heidi McGregor, and we are going to talk to you today about the conference that's coming up, the MassQ virtual conference that was once the fall conference and is now moved here into the middle of winter due to the COVID pandemic. But ladies, how did we get to this point?
We had the conference in the fall, obviously very excited, Gillette Stadium, ready to go. And as we know, the world turned upside down with the pandemic, and it wasn't in our cards to do a full virtual conference, but as an organization, and I think Heidi can also speak to this, we wanted to be able to continue to give the good professional development and programming to our members, and we actually, beyond our members, and we wanted to still have the conference in October. And we realized that the week that the conference would have been was when many schools in Massachusetts were actually going from remote to hybrid. And we understand the realities of educator life, so we pushed it back to February.
Yeah, and that was great forethought on that, given what everyone was going through at the time. Now, in the process of looking at the regular in-person conference and then moving to a full virtual conference, what's this going to look like? What's the format going to be?
Heidi, you want to go?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, we're gonna be doing this conference virtually, which is actually a mixed blessing, right? Like, being in person is one of the great things about MassQ. But having it be virtual, there are some really great things that are going to be happening. We can connect with people from all over the world in ways that we wouldn't have normally. So we're going to be using, we've partnered up with Tech and Learning to come up with a platform that is just unbelievable. I'm so excited about this virtual platform that we're using for our sessions.
So how does the conference look? Generally you'd go, you park your car at Gillette Stadium and you go up that big giant elevator and there's people handing you stuff, and you walk through the exhibitor hall and you see Pat Patriot and you see the field and you walk to the other side of the stadium for the keynote speech and the opening and coffee, of course, everywhere. So what will the format of the day look like?
Well, I'm so sorry to say that we will not have the field or any views of Julian Edelman this year. You'll have to bring your own coffee from home, or Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, wherever you get your coffee, right? But instead of coming up the elevator, you're going to log into QCentral. Once you register, you'll be able to set up a QCentral account, and within QCentral, and for those people that came to the physical conference and remember the hubbub of QCentral in the vendor area, it's very similar in an online experience. You can view a schedule, visit an exhibitor, view the vendor activities, view on-demand sessions, because not only are we going to be having semi-live sessions, we're also going to be having on-demand sessions. And all of our sessions you'll be able to watch on your own time at night, on the weekends, through July, I believe. You're going to be able to view special sessions. We have a lot of networking going on and things at night, so you're going to want to check those out. There's also this really neat this year that I've never seen at the physical conference, a registrant directory. So you can actually, I know that it was in the app, but it's a little bit different, where you can actually see right now who's already registered. Not who's just presenting, but who's registered. So that way you can sort of network and find people on social media that are already attending. The one thing we really wanted to do with our virtual conference was to create that MassQ community in the online space. And I think our conference committee has knocked that out of the park.
Yeah, and that's a tremendous amount of work to pivot to this digital platform. I mean, you've gone from having a physical space to having to try and recreate this in another way online, and they've definitely done an amazing job with this. Right from the jump, when you go to massq.org and you click on the 2021 conference button, it brings you right to this separate site, and everything is right there. I mean, the vendors are all right there. They're the exhibit hall, the social media platforms are all there, and it couldn't possibly be easier.
No, and similar to what you were saying, you were asking about, the schedule. I mean, the schedule is very similar. We have our keynote. I mean, Dee Lanier is unbelievable, and he's going to be speaking about lessons learned from his hip hop heroes. And his favorite hip hop artist is Lauryn Hill. I actually asked him that when I saw that he was going to be speaking about that. And there's an exhibit hall, and there's, you can add things to your calendar, and then the links to join an event are right there. So we really hope that people are going to feel that community when they're sitting wherever they're watching these sessions and interacting with others there.
And Rayna, too, I noticed on the registrant directory that under each person's name, there's a red button where you can request a meeting with that person.
Yep.
And my brain is churning already thinking about how great that's going to be, because if you attended a session with a presenter and you wanted to have a follow-up conversation, or you wanted to, extend the conversation a little bit more, there's this really easy way that you can just go right to the this directory and request a chat with somebody.
Yeah, and Heidi, that's another example of how going virtual has actually opened doors versus closed them, right? Like I know, it's that sad loss. I mean, we all suffered that as MassQ board members of having to not be able to bring our event to Gillette Stadium and all be together. But now look at these other things we've been able to do. I mean, we never had even, I don't know if you looked at the special sessions, but we've never had special sessions like this before that are going to be going on all afternoon. There's an SEL track, a diversity, equity, and inclusion track, self-care. I mean, things about teleservices. I mean, I don't remember ever seeing these things at our conference.
Yeah, I'm super actually excited about the special Sessions when I saw them announced, that we're going to have that Sketchnoters Cafe, which is something I always look forward to in our physical conference, but to think that we can still do that one online, I'm really excited about that. But the self-care one, I'm really curious how that's going to work.
I just think it's great we're offering it. And then Brandon, we also have, the vendor hall is very similar, where you can go to a booth, you just click on, go to the booth. And then when you actually visit the booth, you can live chat message with somebody there. You can book a meeting with our vendors that are there, which is great. You can watch a video about the product, find them on Twitter, and connect with them that way. So there's a lot going on that even in a vendor booth, I mean, you couldn't just go find them on Twitter right away and have sort of this communication with other people who are using the product. You'd have to talk to the vendor, walk away, and then maybe go do it. But this is a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and I went to the virtual ISTE conference this year and found it to be really overwhelming. And looking at their website and their portal and everything, it felt like a lot. And ISTE to me is generally as overwhelming as it is. This doesn't feel like that. This doesn't. It's so much. The platform is very easy to navigate. The layout is very simple and it gets right to the point. Right. And this isn't MassQ's first rodeo either with a digital conference.
No.
So in looking at that, what sort of things has the conference committee or MassQ in general learned from, say, the virtual Google Paloozas that have happened, or the Data Palooza that just happened?
That's a tough question. You had to go there. Actually, you know what though? I think some of the things we've learned is how to better coach our presenters. Like about even like things like the backgrounds and, using the devices and having things ready, and those are much smaller scale. And we actually have gone between Google Meet and Zoom on those events. And there's only like 4 or 5 sessions running at a time versus, this is quite large. But I really think what we've really learned is the value of the networking, the connecting, the talking. I know one of the things that I've presented at some of these virtual conferences. So one of the things that I feel like as a presenter that's been hard and a shift for me is when you go into your room to present online, no one's talking, right? Everyone has their mic off. So just being able to get used to the fact that that's the culture, right? I am encouraging people to talk and engage, but with these online ones, they're like webinars where then you get to talk to somebody and learn how to do something. I do find with the ones we've done, those have all been live, and we felt for this one, we wanted to be able to have the video library because things are so extensive to be able to go back and watch at your own time.
Yeah, and that's going to be a completely new opportunity, right? Like at the in the in-person conference, you have to choose between you have to make
Yeah,
some really difficult choices about what presentation you're going to see. Now you don't. You can, I
no.
mean, you could watch these every night from now until July, and be entertained at home. So that's certainly an option. And so some tips for the conference. So for people who are first timers or people who are long timers, I know that there are some people that talk about how they remember MassQ in a gym or out in Sturbridge, or the people like me who have only been to it at Gillette. What sort of recommendations would you make for the newbies or the veterans?
Well, definitely one recommendation would be to get some sort of a game plan, right? Like, so after you register it and you get access to QCentral, go through the schedule and really think about which sessions you want to attend, especially if you're planning to attend them live, right? So you should probably have some sort of schedule made for yourself. But then at exactly that same time in your head, you need to be aware that you might change your mind and be flexible with that. I think that's one of the great things about our MassQ conferences is that there are so many options available that if you start in a session and it's not quite what you thought it was going to be, or if it wasn't, for whatever reason, not the session that you think is going to, help you move forward with whatever you are trying to learn, it's totally acceptable to switch and go to another session. And honestly, when we were in Gillette, to do something like that was a little bit harder because you might have to walk all the way to a different wing or another floor. And this is really more of just a click to a different session.
Yeah, and there's always that awkwardness, right? Having to get up in the middle of a presentation if it's not
Yeah,
what you.
that's gone.
Oh yeah. So it's great for the introverts out there.
Yeah, we also have Marlena Gross Taylor as one of our Qbyte speakers, and we have featured speakers as well. Melanie Roy, who's a librarian, Colleen Worrell. So I always highly suggest people check out them. I mean, that's still there, and they're actually scheduled this year with other presentations where in the past they've been by themselves on the main stage. So we wanted to we could provide more of an offering in the virtual platform, but like you said earlier, if I miss something, I can go back and watch it later.
Yeah, that's huge. So kind of building out that schedule ahead of time, making sure you got all your things together. And then how about on social media to
I was
stay?
just going to say following the
Yeah.
hashtag MassQ, that's going to be the way to go. So if anybody has a tweet deck, I would definitely suggest doing a column of hashtag MassQ. And then I think like what Heidi and I were talking about earlier is, taking advantage of that registrant directory, right? Like periodically checking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have social media ambassadors for this event as well. So setting up that column in your tweet deck is great advice because you're going to be able to see things that are happening as they're happening at the conference, even if you're not in a particular session. The social media ambassadors will be sharing that out.
Yep, and their information is also on the conference website, but I also believe we are adding a college student to have that higher ed voice.
Oh, I love that. That's a great.
We're evolving.
We are. We're getting better. I love it.
So what sorts of things would if you're a presenter, what kind of advice would you have having both presented now virtually? I know Rayna has, Heidi, you have too as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for presenters?
So the presenters this year, if they're live, are actually going to be doing a semi-live presentation. So it's not going to be me going through my slide deck and taking questions as I go. It's actually going to be me having my slides go, and then I do a Q&A at the end.
Okay. So in the sense, the format would be you would give your presentation and then people can, and then you open up the floor. Okay.
Yes.
And what kind
I
of
think the reasoning behind that, if people are wondering, is because as we all know as educators, there are tech issues.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi goes down, power goes out. Those are things we can't control, but I think having the video backup is a great tool to have because then you don't have to worry about those things.
Right.
Power goes out, you can watch the video later. You don't have to worry about missing your presentation.
Yeah.
So I would I would just think that the presenters just need to be aware of the format, right? Because it's a little bit different than a totally live event.
Oh, yeah, that is definitely a shift there for presenters, because usually, you kind of can try to read the room and you adjust based on, who's in there. But if they're going to be pre-recorded to a certain extent, I think presenters should be just kind of aware of that.
And I know when I did my video, which they have to be in by next week. So by the time this comes out, everyone's video should be in. But you really had to work hard at being excited, like the whole way through.
Right.
Because you don't know what the room is like, right? So that was a challenge for me as a presenter. So I hope people actually appreciate the work that goes into making these presentations, because I found it to be way more challenging than just like I find that I can walk into a room and just go.
Yeah, right. And some things that presenters don't necessarily have to think about when they're doing a regular presentation, right? Like you're talking to an audience where you see body language, and once you realize when you lose a crowd, the shoulders slump, and you start to see people swiping in social media or on their phones, eye rolls, yawning, that kind of thing. You don't get any of that sort of negative feedback or positive feedback. People sitting up in their chairs, they're engaged. So keeping that energy level up it's going to be a one-man show on that. And having done some presentations like this myself, it's just like, you got to kind of forget all those things you knew about, teaching, because it's a totally different format. So have that bottle of water next to you too. That helps.
Right. And I hope attendees let the presenter know, if they've seen them, like use social media to reach out to the presenter and let them know.
Yeah.
Right. Like we want feedback.
Yeah, I mean, the presenters that come to MassQ are just amazingly dedicated and engaged educators, right? Like we just have like this amazing community. So I think sometimes a participant might be a little shy about reaching out to a presenter, but I think we can say this, that our presenters would want you to.
Yes.
They would want to hear from you. They would want to know what you thought of the presentation. They would want to know how you plan to use it in your own practice, how it inspired you to move forward. You can use social media for that, or that request to chat button on the registrant list in QCentral. There's lots of ways to get in touch with our presenters, and they would welcome that.
And a quick tip: remember what your background looks like while you're doing your presentation or you're doing your Q&A. Just keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. I was going to say that's true, but those will already be done. But I was thinking about like when you're actually listening, but it doesn't matter because I don't know if they'll be able to see them.
And then finally, how do you go about registering for this conference? So we've talked about all the great stuff, we've given some hints and some tips and some feedback about what we're going to expect. I want to go to MassQ. What do I do?
Well, you're going to go to massq.org. And
the fall 2020, not fall, sorry. That's still it's like I still have to get used to that. The virtual 2021 conference link. There's a button actually right on the main page. Go ahead, Heidi.
Yep, I was just going to say there's a button right on the main page. It looks like it's sort of like a purpley bluish color that says 2021 conference. And if you click on that, it will walk you through the entire registration process.
Yeah, and it also brings you right to that full conference website. And that platform is through Swoogo. I'm really impressed by that. It looks great. It really does.
I agree.
Yeah, they did an amazing job. And I can't thank Tech and Learning enough for being a valued partner with us and, getting this off the ground and, really working with us on this. We've been very lucky with that. And our all of our vendors who have signed up and trust us with this event, right? Because that was a shift for our vendors and our exhibitors, right? I mean, that's hard. Virtual is very different. And, we have amazing corporate partners, CDWG, ClassLink, Lexia, Microsoft, Unified, Renaissance, ProAV, and is it Oakers? And so we're very lucky to have them. And then our exhibitors, we have a waiting list, which is amazing considering, our global pandemic right now.
Right.
So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. And these kinds of conferences are big sales days for these companies too. So to be able to still be involved is good. So make sure you visit those booths, especially the ones that are presenting sponsors. Engage with each other in some way, shape, or form. You take advantage of that presenter list and the attendees list, and reach out to a MassQ board member or a MassQ conference committee member. They've done a lot of work to make this event possible, even if it's just a virtual high five on Twitter. That's always appreciated. Any final thoughts?
Just that. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, go ahead, Rayna. You go first. Because
No, I was just going to say, as not just as MassQ president, but someone who's been a long time MassQ, conference attendee. I mean, this is how I learned about MassQ. I attended the fall conference in 2010. My principal said, I have something for you. You're going to love it. And once you go, you're never going to want to stop going. And she was so right. But I have to, thank all of our attendees and our board and MASS for just still swinging with this and supporting us and, recognizing a good thing when we have it. I feel really lucky to be part of this family. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us for this really special event.
Thanks, Rayna. Yeah, and I think I just want to build on what you said too, is that when I discovered MassQ, that was when I really grew as a professional. It was a huge shift for me once I found this community, and just to think that we don't have to miss this conference, it just makes me so happy that we can still continue the work that we do together and with inspiring each other and moving forward as a community of educators.
Yeah, all well said. Looking forward to connecting with you both at the conference, and between now and then, I'm sure we will touch base. But thank you both for being repeat guests here on the Get a Q podcast. We'll have both of you on again, I'm sure. And we hope to hear from you and see you at the conference. Thanks for listening. Be sure to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and anywhere podcasts can be found. This is the Get a Q podcast from MassQ, here to educate, connect, and inspire.